Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. I'm Amy Shannon, but you can call me Amy. Thank you for listening. Hello and welcome, and I hope all is well with you. I'm Amy, and today I am talking about author Jeremy James Smith's book, Holtgart, Holtgart, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. His book his audiobook was released on June 17th. So congratulations, Jeremy. It's a comedic fantasy, epic fantasy. According to the author, this is just part one of a saga. So this is volume one. And it's a very interesting story. I really just liked how it was put together. This is the first book of Jeremy James Smith that I've read, and I'm actually looking forward to his future uh, books, especially if they evolve from this particular story. Um, in my review, I gave it 5 stars, and I wrote in Holtgart, the reader's introduced to Angus, a virtual invisible nobody in his community of dwarves whose fate takes a turn for the better and gives him fame. Eventually, he keeps having to always prove his worth, at least to himself. Um, and like Angus has to go through a lot of things such as battles, war, defending people. And this is a magnificent world that the author has built. And I really like Angus, and he could be any type of creature, any type of fantasy character, creature, being, and he's also has a lot of human qualities, such as he doubts himself. He looks at himself as a nobody. He could walk down the street and nobody would even notice that he was there. He believes he's that type of dwarf, and then when he has something that makes him visible, he thinks he has to keep doing that. So I really enjoyed this story, and I am. It also it's in print and it's an audiobook. And I read the print book and I listened to the audiobook. Um, so either way, one thing I do find that's interesting is that, you know, I look at audiobooks and print books as a reviewer as two separate reviews, because I'm not just um, reviewing in audiobooks the content and the author's writing ability and things like that and character development, but I am also listening to the quality of the audiobook itself, the narration, things like that. So, those are things to look at. And if you do review an audiobook, those are some of the questions that they ask when you're going on like audible.com to review your book. And the best part of the audiobooks is that in order to write a review, you have to listen to the entire book. You can listen to it on whatever speed you want, however you can keep up with the story, but you have to listen to the entire book. And then it will allow you to post your review. And I recommend anytime you listen to a book, you read a book, post a review, even if it's a book you've happened to find it and it's a book from an author who's no longer alive, those reviews, they are a selling point for authors. So the one thing I wanted to do also in discussing Jeremy's book is that it's so interesting how many I've read so many fantasy books. This one I liked a lot because it wasn't just all about battling and monsters beating the, beating each other senseless or going out to war all the time and then battling for their rights for kingdoms. This was just, there was a humor to the story. I think that makes it's not such a heavy story. And some fantasy stories can be very heavy. And I mean that as there is no like break from the action. Sometimes, you gotta hold your breath and you keep going and going and going. But sometimes, and this happens in real life, that when you're in a serious situation, sometimes you use levity to kind of break the tension and also, um, you know, deal with whatever the that you have to deal with. So I like that book. I like this book because does it that way. It is um, a good sized story, but it is definitely worth a read. So before this book will be available on Amazon and Audible, and maybe some other sites starting on June 17th. But I'm going to read the prologue to you. So maybe that'll pique your interest and you'll want to pick up a copy of this book. Prologue, Raiding the Roost. In granite stone we place our trust as we tunnel through the crust, one errant rock nigh, trade our crew, yet patience load us to break through. Argent Origins. And that's a quote. So, Dragon Lord, Skull, and if I may not even have his name right, I'm just kind of sounding it out. Paced through the cavern, searching for the source of the sound that disturbed his long slumber, finding it only a single fist-sized rock calved from the solid stone on the wall on the north side of the chamber. He sent it skittering down an unused tunnel before returning to the pile of gold and silver that served as his bed. Using his massive, scaly trefoil tail, he caressed the mound that he settled, putting the pile back in perfect order. He shared his chambers with several beautiful dams and dozens of their eggs coated in semi-molten silver and containing his brood. Another 100 years of careful incubation and they would be ready to hatch. The next generation bearing his trace. He shuffled with the pride as he surveyed the scene. No sign of men or dwarves crossed his eyes or nose. The smell was telling, of course. Human smell sour to a dragon, and dwarves are even worse. But offensive as they may be, identifiable scents can make for good early warning systems. Awake and aware, Skull was nigh invincible. Asleep, even when mighty dragons are somewhat vulnerable. Dragons can see residual heat, even through walls in some circumstances. He scanned beyond the room for threats before settling fully. He saw nothing to cause alarm, no telltale hotspots aside from his family. They were safe. He stretched his powerful sinewed wings, touching both sides of the chamber. His cavernous maw opened in an extended yawn. Confident again of his unassailable position, the dragon curled up like a sleeping dog on his pile of precious metals and stones. He tucked the tuft on the end of his tail behind his scaly lips, paying homage to some primal suckling need. Sleep soon overwhelmed him, but he did not wake, and for the first and last time in his life, Skull dreamed of tunneling dwarfs. A lone stone fell inside the dragon's bedchamber, dislodged by dwarves' adjacent work. That was close. Daniel's work was a mere whisper. No mistaking, we've got a dragon on the other side of the wall, and he's big. Daniel's steel pike was a dwarf in his prime. Stop and muscular. He stood nearly 5 feet tall and held a funnel-shaped listening device between his ear and the freshly worked stone wall. Aye, we're almost through. Young Prince Artemis pressed his ear to the cold stone wall, listening. We'll sit here till he's asleep again. One impertinent pebble nearly derailed years of drilling and tunneling. Achingly, slowly process again. The diggers masked their presence from the dragon, constantly splashing from the spring on the walls in front of them and around them. Cool stone made their body heat undetectable. Not much longer now, they would be ready for strike. It was a critical that they came upon a sleeping dragon, as those awake put up much more of a fight. Young Artemis would be there, but would not be the first to take a swing. Despite his loyal blood, he had not yet earned the right to attack a creature like this before worthier dwarves, had made an attempt. Young Artemis was a big believer in tradition. So that is just the prologue of the book, and I find that it's very interesting. There's a lot of different creatures, and the dwarves, they are really, they have their own society. So, um, and just kind of like when you think about communities in general, every type of creature or being has a community, and sometimes there's that one that just doesn't feel like they fit in. They feel like nobody's paying attention to them. They could, light a bullhorn and nobody would respond because it was them. Somehow, sometimes people feel that, and sometimes people feel that they are alone and they don't realize that they're not alone, or that people actually care about them. And I think that, the story, it's not, a story that like a fable that has a moral to it, but I think that this is a very relatable story, even though it's not human beings, it's dwarves. And according to the dragon, dwarves smell worse than humans. So I don't know if that's a plus for being a human. Anyways, I had the pleasure of reading this book and writing the review for it. And to go back to my review in a whole, you know, um, it's an incredible world built by Jeremy James Smith. He has a great imagination. Angus is a dwarf, but he is something special, even when he thought he was nobody. He's determined and tenacious. The story is a timeless tale of fantasy. And it's a great story to figure out and see what will happen next. And it is one fantastical journey. So, buy the print book, listen to the audiobook. It's a pretty amazing story. So thank you for listening to me talk about again Holtgart by Jeremy James Smith, available June 17th, 2024, audio and print. So if you're an author who wants your book to be on the show, go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/podcast for more information. Thank you, and I'll talk to you next week. This has been Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Thank you for listening. And always, be kind and stay safe. Thank you.